This is going to be so good, you guys. Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. Welcome to Season 1, finale episode. Today we'll take a look back at the wonderful conversations and artist journeys that were shared this season. I know I personally learned so much from these artists, and I hope you did as well. Our first artist is Laura Walker. Laura is a very talented artist located in Coleman, Alabama. She creates fun and colorful pieces. She has work that is full of life with impasto painting. She has also been working on a very soulful collection of watercolors.
More of my advice would be find what appeals to your heart. There's lots of ways that you can make an income with art if you're so inclined. A lot of people they like to keep it as a hobby, which is great. It still nourishes your soul. Yeah. But if you want to do it as a living, there's so many directions to go in. And like my experience with teaching was that I was good at it and people would pay me to do it, but I didn't actually find it to be nourishing to me. It was energy draining.
Yeah.
And I have found that for the art festivals also, for some people it's draining and just very taxing. I mean, it's physically and emotionally challenging for sure. But I think it helps if you love doing it. Like my personality is an extrovert, so I like getting out there at festivals. It's exciting to me. And I like interacting with my collectors. I have one of my closest friends is an introvert, and she did festivals for a year or two, and she just hated it. She hated the experience of it, and it's way too much work to be doing to hate it.
The second artist, Suzanne Nobles, is just starting out in her pursuits as an artist. She's an art student here at UAB. She's been an artist for a while, having started a portrait drawing business while in school as a teen. She has an amazing ability to capture people through her portrait work in multiple mediums.
Yeah. I think growing up in the digital age has been rough for me, partially because having a post not get a ton of likes or having a stagnant amount of followers for a certain amount of time. My work's not getting the attention that I was hoping that it would. Like, what am I doing wrong? And, there's this assumption that you've done something wrong or, all art is good art to somebody. Somebody is going to like your work and love what you do and love your vision. So I think it's, if you have to take a break from social media, I definitely recommend that. But I'm not going to do it for likes. I'm going to do it because I just want to share my stuff. Yeah. I just want to have a record of my stuff. And I'm going to start Instagram more for me rather than for other people.
The next artist is located in Manitoba, Veronica Funk. Veronica is a seasoned artist with work in public spaces, galleries, features in magazines, and many awards and honors. Her series, Nasty Women, Extraordinary Women, and Grandmothers are beautiful collections honoring and uplifting the women in our lives. Her work is full of expressive layers of texture and color that wow the viewer.
I think you need to get yourself out there and kind of harden up a little bit, but at the same token, be yourself, be positive. If you're feeling not very good one day, especially, we know the last couple of years have been tough.
Sure.
Just stay away from it. Get in your studio and paint or create something. That'll make you feel better than anything. Go out for a walk. Yeah. Stay away from it. Don't think you have to do this or have to do that. Try something. If it doesn't fit with you, try something else. I And you'll build confidence. That's one of the things when I started speaking in public and, and that I was so nervous because I'm an introvert at heart. But the more I talked and then people would respond and say, oh my gosh, I had the same experience or something similar, or I feel the same way. Then suddenly you realize it's really important to share what you do and how you feel about what you do, because there are people that will connect with it. And that's important. Most valuable pieces of advice that I got many years ago was pay attention to what draws your attention. And that means if you like, cafes, sit and draw in cafes. If you like, trees, draw or paint trees, pay attention. If something is important to you, home life, that's how I started painting chairs and furniture in my home. And that was my first exhibit. And I think it was because before that I was dabbling in this, trying that, wanted to be a watercolorist. I'm just not, and, try different things. It's fun. And I try these things, but I always come back to acrylic on canvas. And I just follow that little, something, that nugget that just draws my attention.
Next up, Kitty Smothers of South Alabama. Kitty paints portraits, places, and pets, along with scenes in life. She has a light and airy style reminiscent of Impressionism and the work of Mary Cassatt. She captures rural life and the very essence of family here in the South.
Let me tell you, there is a painting that I have right now hidden in my closet. Yeah. And I never bring that painting out. But it, after around 25 years of, I've got some skill and some time behind me, but I worked on this one portrait for this client, and I put so many hours into it, so much work. Being an artist who also has a full-time and a part-time job, you come home from work and, maybe you're working on your painting in your living space with your children running around. And, I often ask for their feedback, but I had so much time put into this portrait and so much work put into it. And so anyway, I send the photo to the client to kind of, give them a look at it. And I was feeling pretty good about it. Yeah. And her response was, this is just not working out. She said, I've asked my husband and it doesn't look like, our child and our grandchild. And I don't want this painting. And huge setback for me. Yeah. And, I try to, which I always do with clients, I want to make them happy, and we'll work together as long as they'll work with me. If I have to keep working on something over and over again, the ultimate goal is for them to be happy with it. But this client was not willing to, continue working with me. So I think that everybody has got those, maybe you call them failures, challenges, things that we hide in our closet that we don't experiences. Yes. So, that's mine. Maybe one day I'll paint over it, but it's definitely a learning experience for me. Is that I've gotten out. I'm a very introverted person, and if I had my way, I would sit at home and be a hermit for the rest of my life, probably, and just
me too.
Yeah. And but pushing myself out of my element to collaborate with my community and create an art guild for my county. And that has been something that I'm very, very proud of, because learning and growing with other artists is something I didn't expect to be so instrumental and important in my life. But it's been wonderful. So we started this art guild probably about a year and a half ago, and I'm able to bring together people of different ages and backgrounds, and we all get together at least maybe a couple times a month. We paint, we create together, we discuss challenges, we share ideas. That to me has just been phenomenal work. Yeah. And so that's something that I am so glad that I didn't stay in my own corner and that would got out and pushed to do that. So that's something I'm proud of. As I've said before, art, being so introspective, you're going to have to be your biggest fan here. You know, you're going to have to tell yourself that, you know, there's space for you, that you're worth it. And so, you know, that would be my main suggestion and advice, is just to really work on yourself and know who you are.
Tabitha Lindquist Grace is an interdisciplinary artist in Central Alabama. Her work combines a variety of mediums, including painting, bookmaking, and poetics. She's experienced and involved in art education with youth and adults within the community.
Well, and part of it was because, like, I grew up on the coast, so we lived really small to a lot of really tiny beach towns. But I just remember it wasn't just the classroom. It was that it was in this like old kind of like beach shack style building that was like off to the side of the school. And it was the art teacher too. She had this big, like, untamable blonde hair, and she had all these silver rings and wore these like really patterned skirt, and like, but she had kind of like a feminine and masculine energy at the same time. She was kind of like this little, it was just like magical, you know, you walked in and there was art, you know, she had strings strung across the walls with like art clothespin to them. And it was just like, it was almost like a kid's playhouse.
Yeah.
Like, try to define yourself as an artist. I would just be careful about how it is that you're defining yourself as an artist, as you're also trying to find your identity as an artist, if that makes sense. Because the identity that you craft for an audience is not going to be the same identity that you would make for yourself regardless of an audience, if that makes sense. It's a good thing to think about, but it can also be a really dangerous thing. Stop making art because you get pigeonholed into making a monetary living and paying your bills off of your art, and then you're making all this stuff that you don't even love. You find no joy in, which will just like shrivel up your little artist heart, and you can stop making. I don't know. Is an innate part of the human experience. Just like eating, procuring food, which used to be hunting and gathering, but now, you know, you go to the grocery store, like all these things that are part of normal everyday life, art is that too.
Yeah.
You know, but we're so far removed from it because, you know, museum and gallery systems, and they've put it into the, you know, mass media over the years to promote. It's for other reasons too, you know. You have eras of our history where we're at war and people do not have the luxury to make art. You know, they don't have, you know, they're worried about other things like survival.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just think that the perspective of art needs to change. Like, I have started teaching kids, and I have to say I prefer teaching children to teaching in universities, because they don't question whether or not they're an artist. They're like, art supplies, and you give them like a general framework of what to do, and it's amazing what they come up with, and they have no problem breaking the rules. No. You know, like 5 times, do it this way, please, and they will be, no, I'm sorry, I just got to do it my way. And there's not, and they don't even say, I'm sorry. Like, there's no apologies. They just know that they make something.
Is Melissa B.
You know?
She creates finely detailed pen and ink drawings of architecture. She has been a featured artist in multiple books and magazines, along with many awards and honors and gallery shows. Her line work captures value, shape, and emotion with immaculate visual acuity. Her work celebrates and preserves Southern heritage.
But I don't beat myself up if I go today without drawing at all. I know that I get more done when I can count on spending at least 2 days, preferably 3 or 4 days in a row at home, because I get that rhythm going. Get up and draw, take a lunch break, draw, break to exercise, which I try to do every day, because that makes me sleep better at night, which means I get better rest. And so I'm better to start the next day with this concentrated work. So I know that I'm doing the very best that I can at any given time. But I will say I'm no different than any other artist. That little voice will say, okay, your client isn't going to like this. This isn't good enough. And, that's the devil getting in there and trying to convince you otherwise. And it's just not so. So I just remind myself, okay, this is the very best I can do at this point in time.
Yeah.
And capture those bad thoughts and boot them out of the way. So, I think all artists have a lot of insecurity when it comes to showing other people your work, even though that's the whole process. You create and you show it, you create and you show it. But there's always that insecurity, fear of what if they don't like it?
Yeah.
When I think I'm finished with a drawing, I take 2 or 3 days to fine tune them. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily, I've read, put it up someplace where you wouldn't ordinarily see it. I just don't look at it for a long time. And then I might not look at it the whole first day. And then the second day, I'll look at it and think, ooh, yeah, that white spot has to recede. It can't be all white. That's when things like that really jump out at me.
Yeah.
And so I take a few days to fine tune them so that I don't miss them because I have been looking at it for so long. But I think as time goes on, we never get to the point where we say, well, unless you got a big ego where you say, oh, all my work is great. You get better at capturing those thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's one reason to sit down and do a resume. I did not have a fine art resume when I quit my office job, graphic design resume. And so when you sit down and think about the things you've done and write them down, you'll be amazed at how much more you have accomplished than you thought, because our mind doesn't think in those terms. And so as you go along, if you get in a show, write it down. If you want a prize in that show, write it down. If you get an article or even just an image in a magazine, write it down. I've managed to get my work in several books. Write it down. If you do an interview, write it down. That helps you realize my work is good enough.
Marmaduke Davenport is a London area-based artist that creates intricately designed and handcrafted automaton creations. He is inspired by medieval art and all things weird and fascinating. He often collaborates with ink artist Judy Keeps.
That's that thorny question that every artist, there's a thing on Facebook, sell your art. So I don't know if you're on that. And there's always people looking for, what shall I charge? And this little group I've just joined, this 7 of us, we're all asking each other, Mm-hmm. One of them is, one guy keeps saying, you've got to put your prices up. You need to put your prices up. But if I didn't sell quickly, I would go off the oil. I'd start doubting myself. So I like the quickness. I'm still finding my way. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I will mass produce them at some point. I did have a guy, he's got this quite quaint shop in Paris. He wanted me to make some stuff, but just affiliate it. He wanted to take some of my designs and affiliate it to his shop.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. And he said, well, I could give you sort of 40 quid each, and he said, I could probably make 10 in a day, and he lost me there. I thought, no, you can't make 10 of these in a day. I don't care who you think you are, I can't, and I've designed them.
Oh my gosh.
I get approached a lot. I've had a lot of people from shops, people trying to buy wholesale, which just instantly means cheap. Yeah. I've just sort of said no. So I'm just sort of making it up as I go along, like everything else in my life. And the art world, again, I find it strange. And I always say, you get like these, like a Rothko, you know, like a red canvas.
Yeah.
And people will stand there looking at it, holding their chins in appreciation. And you're thinking, well, that's not art. What's that? It's worth 10 million quid. You're like, what? I'm spending bloody months designing something that no one else can do, and I'm getting... I don't understand it. It's a strange world. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what makes one person's pain more valuable than the others. You know, I was lacking it. I've been not, you know, the school of hard knocks, if you like. So I was very doubtful of what I could do. But now I've just started building stuff and getting showered with praise sometimes. You know, you have to watch it, you know, the old ego, because that praise doesn't last. Again, I always mention her, Judy Keeps.
Yeah.
She's also a therapist.
Oh,
and she was saying that there was an artist, a real famous one, that contacted her, and she was having a crash. She'd just put on this amazing show, and afterwards there was a big crash, you know, a mental crash. That would build up. And I suppose we get like endorphins, or we get addicted to the praise. But then when that praise goes, we're down, you know, and it's a big down. And I've noticed every project I make, and then I'll put it on Instagram and I get all the feedback. And then when that feedback trickles away, I start feeling like an emptiness, you know. Yeah. And talking to the other guys now, and like what you're doing, if you ask this question again to artists, you might find they all get that, you know. I don't know if you do. You know, you'll get the joy of finishing something, and then when that's just another painting, that joy's gone. You know, you hear all these stories of the famous artists and all killing themselves, and so you know, their ups are up and the downs are down. Yeah. You know, and there's nothing more, you know, when someone wants to buy something that you've made. You know, at first, I wasn't sure about that at the beginning. You know, I was very doubtful, and it took a little bit of getting used to. I turned a corner by trying to look at the good in everything, you know. Yeah. Just a life thing, you know, and I found if I look for the best in people, that's what I see. And then that's what they see, you know, that's the engagement in life. I mean, if you're sort of looking at the bad and you're bitter and twisted, you're going to find that, and that's just life, isn't it, you know? If you go about life as a thief, the whole world's a thief, isn't it? But if you go about sharing love and kindness, then all of a sudden, that's what you receive back. That's how I found and learned and worked for me.
Next up is local Birmingham artist Justin Stokes. Justin creates ink and digital art that is both dark, humorous, and nostalgic. His work has a darkness that teeters on the absurd while reminiscing at our 20th century pop culture, icons, movies, and music. His work is appreciative of the light and dark sides of life with a vintage ad or movie poster quality.
I think I'll say that either when I try something, and it's not working out, like it's either going to take more time, like I'll recognize, all right, I need to put more into this. And it's not always worth the investment. And that's all it is. It's just like, well, I kind of want to do this. It's going to take a lot more work. But on the flip side, if it's something I just find myself not really being into, like there's almost always a transferable skill that I can take and apply elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
And I guess my biggest example of, you know, something I think along those lines is I keep kind of dabbling with watercolor, but I've yet to really find a way that I want to do it. But I wouldn't necessarily describe it as being disappointed or thinking I've walked away. I just have not yet, you know, gotten it to where I want to, and haven't figured out how I'm going to integrate it. But at the same time, playing with it has always made me feel like I learned something or had some sort of takeaway to do elsewhere. I think you bring up a really interesting point there, which is like the parts that I do think is sometimes fun being an artist is figuring out something that just, you know, looks good, but it doesn't mean you can really explain how you got there or like really how it works, like why it's working. And I even sometimes, if I don't feel skilled at something, I'll find ways to kind of hide what I feel my shortcomings are. You know, sometimes I hate drawing hands or feet. So I just find a way to make the composition to where I'm not going to have to, like they're hidden by something, or they're, sometimes something will really work. What's frustrating to me at this stage is I'm at that point where I'm not good enough or practiced enough to know how to replicate that consistently. So sometimes I'll just accidentally stumble in something and be like, how did I do that? You know, how do I replicate that the next time I want to?
Yeah.
The little things that would add up to a long time to like really talk about. But I think I built both confidence and a little bit of following in 2019. Felt like a really exciting year, and that 2020 was going to open up and be the best year I'd ever had going into it. And then pandemic happened, and I was working. I was a project manager in telecom, and we were working from home, and hours kind of came to a point that I just wasn't really happy doing that financially. You know, my wife, Kim, still has her job that she loves. It was making enough income for us to risk losing some of mine. Because we knew it wasn't going to drop, I wasn't dropping down to zero, but I was significantly going to drop the income I was bringing in to work at trying to build this more.
Jasmions is a fun and funky upcoming digital artist in New York. Her style, while colorful and whimsical, juxtaposes with real life. Her outlook is to create fascinating comic-style pieces with deeply meaningful storylines. Her work is precursory of animation and immersive graphic novel experiences.
School, a lot of people are hypercritical about me being in school for art. They were like, what is that going to do for you? And then, I started being able to get commissioned work for stuff, and people were like, they would be shocked, like that I was like getting paid work to do things. And I was like, well, it was the whole point of it. And then as time went on, like, because with commissions, it's up and down thing. It's like, It's not consistent. You're not going to always, but that's with any business. And I had to like make my mind adjust to that, because when people beat you down about that as well, you start feeling weird. And sometimes other artists do it. Like, I don't even, as artist myself, I can't say that I haven't done that to somebody else, And that's just me being transparent and being able to see that we kind of all do that along the line. It's really easy to kind of look at something and not think, because it's not worth something to us, it's not worth something, but it doesn't mean that, because there's always somebody in the world that this is worth something to. It just takes finding that. And sometimes you're not going to find it, or you'll find it here and there, or you'll trip over things a lot, and you'll eventually fall into a place where your thing makes sense. So I think that helped me out a lot. And I think for me, starting so young, attempting to do art, I've had to take a lot of licks along the way of people like just being like, oh, you're wasting your time, or why are you sitting around drawing? But the key for me is like, I'm a little bit of an overachiever. So that's not a good thing, but it's also helped me along the way, because I was able to do multiple things at once. So I would have a job, and I was athletically inclined. So people, even if they would criticize me about my artwork, it would be like, well, I'm kind of just also doing this. Sometimes people connect with you, and sometimes you need the people to connect with you to connect with your art, because your art is an extension of yourself. And sometimes if somebody feels like they can't connect with you, they almost can't connect with your art because they don't know who they're connecting with. And so and I've seen that too. And that's also something I had to process to make it easier at shows. Like, maybe somebody's not connecting with me, and getting overwhelmed at the show, sometimes it makes you shut down. So it'll make you you don't communicate as much, or you'll feel like, oh, this is overwhelming. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here. And there's so many personalities and so many people coming around and talking, and some people want you to talk to them and some people don't want you to talk to them. So it's a lot, So I've learned that some people, they need to connect with the artist to connect with the artwork. And some people, they need to just connect with the artwork. They don't need you to say anything to them. And you have to gauge the room. And that's also exhausting too, because it's like a lot of meeting people, because like, some people, if you start talking to them too quickly, it scares them off. And like people, there's like a lot of mental illness and a lot of anxiety and depression and other things that happen in the real world. It might not even be about you. Some people are just like that. Yeah. And they don't need you to talk to them. Some people, that's just a cultural thing for them. So you have to be able to understand that it might not really be about you or your artwork, and you can't take everything so personal. Because if you do, you're going to kind of beat yourself down, and it could just be that person, you know, and maybe they just need to look at it.
Yeah.
And then I've had people look at my artwork, not say anything to me at all, and then later on message me on Instagram.
Evan Nicole is an aspiring portrait photographer, art enthusiast, and collector. Evan experiments with colorful, whimsical portraiture of friends and family. She also is an art supporter and advocate. She is an active collaborator with Free Art Birmingham. She is a collector of lunar-inspired pieces that speak to her heart.
So I bought my first camera back in November of 2020 as kind of like a this year's been crap kind of thing, so I'm going to treat myself. So I went on Facebook Market and found someone and got a decent camera and just kind of started winging it. There was a bunch of like Soul meetups, and she basically just creates these events for people, like photographers and models, to come out to certain parts of Birmingham and just kind of do like a impromptu shoot like on the streets and stuff like that. And so that was kind of like my first photo shoot. There was a lot of critique I had on myself just because I didn't know basics of camera stuff or how to do this and that. And so I had a couple of pictures come out good, so that actually made me feel a little better because I was starting to like get kind of, you know, leery. But then after that, I just kind of started asking my sister and her friends to do photo shoots for me, and then just kind of did like a giveaway so I could get some more picture access. And then I had a couple of friends reach out to me to like do a couple of their own photo shoots. So
interesting.
It's basically, I'm just asking people to do photo shoots. There's a bunch of like local models and stuff like that that are really heavy into like doing creative shoots. So I have them kind of on the save tab bar to contact whenever I need someone. But a lot of times a few friends and stuff will just reach out to me. So usually she has like different themes, like, you know, 90s theme, streetwear, monochromatic, different things along like that.
Yeah.
And then basically you just show up. There's like a 3-hour time frame, something like that. And then you just show up with your camera and you just start taking pictures of people, and you just kind of, after a while, people start wandering off to go to like different parts of that area and stuff like that. So it's always pretty fun. And then it's kind of a good way to meet more creatives and stuff without actually having to like search for someone like, oh, who can I like befriend kind of thing. It's kind of like, you know, when you would wear your mask in public for the first few times, you're like, I don't have to talk to anybody or greet them or smile. I can just go about my day. That's kind of how I feel whenever I have the camera in front of me, is I don't have to communicate as much. And then some people I click with automatically personality wise, and then some people I'm just like so shy around. So
Amber Orr is a local Birmingham artist that creates colorful abstract realism paintings full of emotion. She creates work inspired by life, good and bad times. She has an expressive, deconstructive style that is unique and inspiring as she is.
Telling me, she was like, if anyone tells you that they got it all figured out, then they're lying. No one has a perfect roadmap to success. Yeah. And who wants to have it all figured out right now? It'll be boring. Yeah. You know, life is about the journey. It's not necessarily about the destination. Yeah. So I'm learning that it's all about right now. And so I'm learning. I hope to get that message across to other people, and I hope to get that message across to myself, that you have to live right now. Who do you want to be right now? Yeah. And focus on that, and stop worrying about tomorrow and like, I don't know. Just, who do you want to be right now? Getting my own way. That's been my biggest struggle, is that I'm 33 and procrastination and insecurities. And that's why, like, nothing against like my family and my mother or anything, but I feel like the downtime that I have right now while she's sick, and hopefully she's going to get better. Yeah. She did everything for me and my sister. We were spoiled. At the same time, I always was like craving this independence to do more. But for so long, I was like, and my mother like, no, it's okay. You don't have to do, you're an artist, but you can just stay right here. I'll take care of everything for you. Oh. And these past 2 years have been chaotic because my mommy is not around, and I'm having to fill out. I'm now figuring out adulthood as an artist, like pushing myself and being who I'm truly am supposed to be and who I already am. Yeah. And so I wish I had done these things in my 20s because I was so distracted and I was so insecure. I had a 2-bedroom apartment and I had a whole studio, but I barely went in there. I was being lazy, procrastinated, insecure, working as a daycare teacher. Mm-hmm. And I just doing all these excuses and not pushing myself and going for it. And I'm not mad at my older self. I understand the opportunities that I have now. I wasn't ready to handle them. And so now I am putting myself out there. I'm doing things differently and just going for it because I don't want to wake up tomorrow with regret. So my biggest, to answer your question, my biggest struggle as an artist with any artist is ourselves. We are our biggest enemies. We have these negative thoughts that don't exist in our head, and we should just go for it. Your first instinct is the right instinct. If something tells you, hey, I should apply to this, I should go to this place, I should do that, you're like, oh, no, scary. It's the fear of being successful. And so, to answer your question, it's me. It was me, my biggest struggle.
Emcee is a painter and muralist located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her work is bold and beautiful. She focuses on feminine and nature subjects that flow and are immersed within expressive splashes of color, texture, line, and especially gold foil. Her work brings beauty and inspiration to the world around her.
That there are a little bit of difficulties navigating yourself in the world of art. When I initially started, I had no clue. Like I said, being completely self-taught, I was actually experimenting, finding my own style, getting my own vision, and kind of, giving a meaning to my art, all of that. So I was already trying to figure that out. And I did not know how to kind of, navigate in this situation and get my work in front of people. But I think the best start would be to getting into a community of artists that are like-minded, involving yourself with the community, working through these small shows and exhibits that are there around, and part of artist groups, and talking about what you do and what you want to do and what's your vision and what are your goals, basically. And there are people on the way that you'll find help through. But I think just sitting back and painting and not doing anything about it, definitely not going to take you anywhere. So how I started was actually just going through the first, when we moved here. So as I was painting for about a year, and then we moved here to Charlotte. That was the first, I kind of, looked through the community galleries and the artist groups that Charlotte had, and I kind of took memberships of that. I signed up to kind of be a part of those artist communities and community galleries, and started showing up at those events and talking to people, just kind of, making sure that I am one voice amongst them. because just being back in studio is not going to help you get out, do anything. So that's how I started. And with trying to kind of, work with their shows and all these small community events where there are small pop-ups and there are little shows that they host with, 20 artists and 25 artists. So I kind of started participating in all of that.
Yeah.
And that's how actually people got to know me, and my work kind of grew, and painting started selling, and more business started coming through. So it is definitely a great way of reaching out to people and having an audience. As far as the sales, I would say who you have, number of your followers, or who you have following you, that really does not determine your sales.
Yeah.
Sales is a totally different thing from what social media is. Social media is there to kind of, show yourself, your skills, what you're doing, kind of making people aware that you're there. Yeah. And then and I have noticed this with my own social media, that a lot of people that I follow, or a lot of people who follow me, are actually other artists and other creatives who are, interested in doing this. So your ideal kind of a buyer is not really sitting there out on social media to kind of, come to you and say, hey, I want to buy that painting, or I want to buy that piece of, this beautiful piece that you created. So it's not really, for me, it's like a 60-40 thing. Most of my sales have come in from the connections that I've built, the way they have gotten out, the way my collectors and my buyers list has increased. So, and that's all through connections. Yeah. And it's all great to start small. And I would say to really, truly don't focus on how many followers you would have or how many people are kind of looking at your things, because people might be looking at you for a lot of different reasons. They could be finding inspiration from you, which is great. They could be just, they just love your art, so they just want to keep seeing it. Or they just love you. They just like to see you. That's why they are over there. Yeah. So it could be many different reasons. Now, I do have some of my buyers and collectors also supporting me on social media, but I would say that has also come through a lot of these meaningful connections that I have made through the community.
Brody Walsh is the mind behind BrainMind Studios. Brody has a distinctive illustrative style and bold, colorful palette. His characters inspire curiosity, humor, and creativity as they go about their lives. Brody creates digital, traditional, and animated art. His work evokes a love for creativity and the artist's inner fascinating world.
For Christmas of last year, my girlfriend and a bunch of my family all chipped in and got me an iPad, and nice. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, having Procreate to use is just, it's all in one place. It already does the time lapse for you if you want. It just has so many questions were answered, and I was sort of starting to dive into a little bit of animation before that, and now it's in the program there's such a easy animation guide that just sort of makes it so easy to make the animations that I want to make, 2D simple cute stuff. And yeah, that's been pretty much now. I don't even know if I've made a BrainMind thing in Photoshop since Christmas, pretty much. It's just been so addicting of you can really bang stuff out and just experiment a lot really quickly. If you ever look even right now, I've always got at my workstation a paper under my I'll have my computer and then a good 6 inches of just paper where it'll just be full of doodles. And so I've always been a drawer. I've always drawn my whole life, where my high school notebooks would just be no notes, like just drawings. Like it was sort of like how, because I did really well in high school, but it was like kind of, I guess like just how I learned better. Like if I was drawing, it kind of allowed me to absorb information better. And so, yeah, I don't know, just like some little things would, if you're doodling every day, like I would just start to notice little things that were like becoming common that I would draw all the time, you know, like for no real particular reason. And I was like, these are like just something you love drawing. We're like, I don't know, for me it was like hammers. I draw a lot of hammers for some reason, and I just you like find something that's like a shape that just works with you, and you're like, I don't know, it's whatever that is, however that happens, who knows. But yeah, I've definitely been drawing in a similar style for a long time, and so it's like it was more of less of like let me start this and more of like let me create a platform to share this stuff. Because at first we were Brainmon Clothing Company, and so I was just like, I'm just gonna print some shirts.
Yeah.
People were interested, so I was like, all right, cool, I'll print shirts and like I'll be a clothing company that also posts art. And then we kind of made the shift. I made these notebooks, these Brainmon storytellers notebooks, and they're half lined, half blank, and I was like, this is really like what I want to do, like make things that are actually gonna help people make art. And so I was like, right, we can't be a clothing company anymore. And plus I was posting like mostly art anyway, as opposed to mostly marketing for clothes or anything. So Brainmon Studios came out of that, where I was like, okay, it's early enough, like now I can really open the door for myself to just sort of just be seen as an art studio, as a place where things are going to come out of, and like kind of a lot more broad, which I was really into that.
Lastly, we have local artist and artist supporter and promoter Brian Burks of Art by Burks. You can find Brian's name everywhere you look. His style is bold and punk rock with elements of pop culture and nostalgia, skulls, zombies, and don't forget that iconic signature. Brian values authenticity and the personal expression of his interests in punk rock culture.
But I would say the books that influenced me most with my art are books on like DIY and like early punk rock. Because when I first started doing things, I knew nobody had heard of me, and I knew that no galleries were gonna like want my stuff, and you know, I wasn't gonna be invited into galleries. Nobody had heard of me, and I've had to figure out like how can I make people know who I am enough to where like they think about me when they think about art or whatever. Yeah. And so like I thought about before there were any like touring circuits in the United States, bands like Black Flag would go through, and they would make up their own paths throughout the country, but they would put their name everywhere. They put their sticker on every street corner. They put their flyers up with paste so they wouldn't come off for a year. And they would just like, everyone knew Black Flag's name by the mid 80s, even if you'd never heard the band or seen them or anything, you know those bars. And they made themselves famous just by, overexposure. And there's a movie called Exit Through the Gift Shop that Banksy made about a guy who tried to make a movie about Banksy and ended up becoming one of the world's most famous artists, and he sucks. He's not really an artist. He just has good ideas that he has other people do, and he pays them to do it. Yeah. And he became famous because he did the repetition thing too. And it just dawned on me that like repetition is like, that's probably the way you have people know your name. So instead of making business cards, I made stickers. And I just went all over town and put stickers everywhere with my name on them. Just vandalized all over. Yeah, like, gas pumps, parking lots, meters. And I would just give them out. Here, stick these everywhere. Yeah. And I think that was so reading about how like early punk bands paved the way gave me the idea that I could probably like underground kind of make myself known. I don't know of any like actual art books, but I think just that whole like aesthetic of reading about because I read every book about punk rock that I could when I was in my 20s, just about how it all started and how it all happened and stuff. I think that definitely influenced me. And to know that like, because reading these people weren't very talented a lot of times, they just had like this wanted to make art. Yeah, I mean, I talk to people all over the world, that buy art from me regularly, maybe like 2-3 times a year they'll buy stuff from me. But, after you do that for a couple of years, these people. And I mean, I don't even know, I know so many people now. It's I can't even like wrap my mind around how many people that I actually have relationships with. Like, it's weird. It's a lot. I'm not like, it's not one of those things that makes me feel, I'm not like, you know, it doesn't make me uncomfortable, like in a bad way. Like some people just really don't like it.
Yeah.
It's almost amusing to me. It's just because I was somebody who for, you know, a good 15 years just worked, went home, went to shows, didn't really talk to people, had my few friends, but I didn't socialize a ton. Yeah. And so now everywhere I go, people automatically know who I am. It's just kind of amusing. It's just funny to me. It's like I just look at them and go, hey, all that shit I did worked. I can't believe it worked. It's crazy. You know? Rather than be like, oh, everybody knows me. Like I try not to ever like, you know, get a head about it or anything. It's just amusing that these people know me. It's so weird. There's times where I see other people succeed and a little piece of me is like, why didn't I get that? And then I immediately like come back and go, no, like that wasn't for you. That was for them. Like you get yours over here. Like you get plenty, like more than enough. Like, so, you know, I think it's in all of us to be that way. And you just gotta like try to be a little more evolved, I guess. Yeah, it's definitely worth it though. Cause I mean, it all comes back to me you know, it all helps me with what I'm trying to do. So it's worth it to me for me to help everyone. Because even in a selfish way, it all comes back around. Yeah. But when I first started doing these things, like when I first started doing shows in Birmingham, you would go to like a pop-up art show and people would be frightened of what I'm doing. Like, they would just be like avoiding me. Like the people who were coming out were not into it. So to see that change over the years and see like, you know, lots of artists who do weird stuff, finding a place and be comfortable, it's a cool thing.
This concludes season 1 of Art Talk with April. The wisdom, creativity, and authenticity of this season's artist is awe-inspiring. I don't know about you, but I feel so much hope, encouragement, and motivation after hearing their journeys. I hope you join us for season 2 coming this fall with an all-new lineup of talented folks. The first episode airs September 6th, 5 p.m. Central Time. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.